I'd like to call the regular meeting of September 23rd, 2019 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
O'Brien.
Present.
Balmas.
Present.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstensen.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
6 present.
All right, full house. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I would just like to compliment Pat and his team for excellent work last weekend in quickly responding to the flood, and all our department heads. I know everybody between communications and making the judgment calls and getting it all organized. Thank you. I got a lot of accolades. Someone specifically came to my coffee just to compliment the village. So compliments to all of you too. We appreciate it. First item of business is approval of the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion from Trustee Balmas, second from Trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Patrick, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the September 9th, 2019 Village Board meeting. Item number 2, approval of Resolution 2019-08 establishing certain property of the Village of Gurnee to be surplus, Public Works Units 650 and 688, and Police Department Units 173. Item number 3, approval of Information System Division's recommendation to renew a 1-year Microsoft Software Assurance Maintenance Agreement with CDWG at a price of $26,552.12, State of Illinois Central Management Services Contract. Item number 4, approval of payroll for period ending September 13, 2019 in the amount of $880,690.02. Item number 5, approval of bills for period ending September 23, 2019 in the amount of $1,736,989.05.
Thank you, Pat. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read in the record? Motion by Trustee Garner, second by Trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please, Andy.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. We'll move on to petitions and communications. The first is a proclamation designating the month of October as Crime Prevention Month. The vitality of the Village of Gurnee depends on how safe we keep our homes, neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, and communities. And crime and fear of crime destroy our trust in others and in civic institutions, threatening the community's health, prosperity, and quality of life. And people of all ages must be made aware of what they can do to protect themselves and their families, neighbors, and co-workers from being harmed by crime. And the personal injury, financial loss, and community deterioration resulting from crime are intolerable and require investment from the whole community. And crime prevention initiatives must include self-protection and security, but they must go beyond these to promote collaborative efforts to make neighborhoods safer for all ages and to develop positive opportunities for young people. And adults must invest time, resources, and policy support in effective prevention and intervention strategies for youth. And effective crime prevention programs succeed because of partnerships with law enforcement, other government agencies, civic groups, schools, faith communities, businesses, and individuals as they help to nurture communal responsibility and instill pride. Now therefore I, Christina Kovarik, Mayor of the Village of Gurnee, do hereby proclaim October 2019 as Crime Prevention Month throughout the village and urge all citizens to work together to make the Village of Gurnee a safer, stronger, and more caring community. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee
Second.
O'Brien, second by Trustee Thorstensen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We actually got a lot done this year with the brand new lights in all the neighborhoods, which is a huge, one of the #1 things we can do to improve safety. The neighborhood watch meetings have been informative and well attended, so putting a lot of effort into this. Thank you, everyone. Next, just a reminder to mark your calendars for October 2nd. Senator Melinda Bush has organized qualified experts to come and hold a meeting on ethylene oxide. It will be at the College of Lake County, the auditorium where most meetings that we attend are held. So I'd mark your calendar 6:30 to 8. And then I'll add a reminder that I'm hosting a community conversation tomorrow on homelessness and panhandling, and you're certainly all invited to join me at that too.
Is this a big auditorium, Mayor? Do you know?
Yeah, this is the big
Where
one
they
in the
hold all
back,
the plates.
Building A.
It's
Shows
Building A, so if you're coming off of Braylock,
with the rounded part.
Yeah, not the theater,
not in the,
not the round one in the theater at the university.
not there.
No, it's the one in the back.
it's on the back side, it's on the south side of the campus. Jack is gonna work on getting a map up, and we'll get it to the village board. If you come in off of Braylock, the Building A is right there off of Braylock.
Oh,
So don't
okay.
come in off
Yeah,
Washington,
it's
come
not
off
in
the
the
back.
theater, it's
Oh,
in the
okay.
auditorium.
Thank
It's like
you.
you go down the stairs and.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to reports, and our first presentation is from Fire Chief Kavanaugh. Going to give us an update on the flood situation.
Yes. As you're all aware, the week of September 9th, we had 3 individual rain events, all in right around 2 inches each. This is a little different type of water we took in this time than we have in previous years. We started to get together about middle of the week. David Ziegler was watching the weather maps. He called us together and made a prediction that he thought we could get as high as 10 and a half feet on Friday. So we started getting together on Thursday. We had a quick meeting that morning. We got back together on Friday, and the weather forecast Friday evening was kind of touch and go which direction. And I do point out David predicted 10 and a half at that meeting. We were looking at the radar. We decided that day to start sandbagging using our public works employees. They built quite a few sandbags, put them out. We started with our PIO, getting information out to all the residents. Sandbags were available. We're seeing the forecast. The forecast is as high as 10 and a half feet. So we made everyone notified through our Connect CTY in that area, letting everyone know. We did, on that Friday night, receive a significant rain event. So we brought the crew back together Saturday morning. We decided we need to move forward. We had Campanella on standby to bring barrier walls, jersey walls into the downtown area. This has worked the last few years, really reduced the amount of labor and volunteers in that area. It also allows us to deploy much quicker. They started that morning about 9 in the morning. All staff with sandbags and everything was out of here by about 3 o'clock, 3:30. We had quite a few volunteers. We sent a message out once again using the Connect CTY citywide. We had in neighborhoods 150 volunteers. Jack, along with his wife Laura, registered all our volunteers, did a nice job, got all of our information together, everything we need. This was Heather's first flood with us as the engineering department. One of the big things we did this time around, and David assisted as well, and some employees, we shot grades on sandbags, meaning we actually figured out where the flood was going to go, and especially like behind the Dairy Queen building, we were able to figure out how many sandbags should be placed, because that's completely very labor intensive. And we really hit it right on. They were able to do this. We got there. We were within probably 4 to 6 inches of the height. So it worked out for us. It allowed us to place the minimum amount of sandbags. We did watch the weather throughout the weekend. We did lose the Fire Station 1. We moved out for 4 nights. It worked out. We've kind of had this practice in the past. We moved into Station 2, as well as the police department basement. The police were a very good host to us. During the entire flood, the police department did staff an extra dispatcher in there to deal with calls on this specifically. So when we would send these Connect CTY calls, quite often people want more information, so they would call in the dispatch center. We chose to leave them up in the dispatcher center this year versus activating the police department basement, how we have in the past. This seemed to work better by leaving an employee actually at their workstation with all the tools they need and everything. We also did the EOC here at the Village Hall instead of the police department basement. We would get together once a day. We would meet, and then we set up a virtual talk group that we were all able to follow. Christopher got that set up on our phones as well as on our computers, so we were able to keep information flowing. As someone got something, we were able to get a lot of historical data in there this time. When we were opening and closing roads, we could note exactly where gauges were, so hopefully we build this. We did go back and look at 2017 records. It was very hard to compare this flood to that one. That was by far our largest flood we've ever had, and that had so much flash flooding involved versus more of this slow up. So it wasn't a perfect model, but it did pretty much get us within that, right to where David predicted, the 10.5, and he was able to do that utilizing this data. We are officially, after this weekend's rain not panning out, thank goodness, tomorrow Campanella is going to start to remove the Jersey barriers. We've sent a message out letting all residents know, please place sandbags on pallets. Public Works will be working throughout the week to get that. We'll also have all the Jersey barriers pulled, all the sandbags pulled tomorrow, and start hauling away. So that's where we're at on the flood. Village staff, once again, we really use the approach. We will supply the sandbags and the equipment there. However, ultimately, the businesses have to have some buy-in, as well as residents, and they have to help us place the sandbags, and then they must stay there, and they need to continue to pump. The 3 major spots downtown this year with the businesses all did that very well. That's the old Trading Post building, Dairy Queen, and the church. They had volunteers around the clock. They had some pumps running, and it worked out well. Everything stayed dry. So all in all, it was, with a little bit of a newer group, a very successful flood, if you can call a flood successful, in that we didn't have large damage that we have in the past. And this was our 6th largest flood in history. So any questions or anything else?
Can you pick some lottery numbers for me? No, but your predictions this time, right on. So questions from the trustees? Trustee Balmas?
But isn't there a lot of rain forecast again this weekend, or are we jumping the gun a little bit, or not?
As we've looked at the forecast, the total amount of accumulation, we're not saying the river's down, should be down below 7 by the time the rain starts hitting. We're feeling pretty good about where it's at. It's in a good spot. The other thing, the businesses down there really would like to keep their customer base and getting that open and moved off to the side. Another thing I'd like to point out, when the church was in Welton Plaza was done, one of the nice things we did was we sent a sidewalk all the way along the west side of that. That played very important. We were able to set Jersey barriers this time around there, where in the past when it's been grass, we've had to set sandbags. So we reduced and were able to increase. So, but we feel pretty comfortable with taking them down. We've met as staff. We've all looked at it, and as a group, we feel comfortable taking the walls down.
Okay. I'm just
Trustee
looking at my yard.
Thorstensen?
Well, we have an update in the future on your stormwater management commission meeting from last week, and those future projections of flooding that was kind of summarized.
Did they tape it, Jack? Do you know?
David attended the meeting at the library last week.
So the village has had representation on the Technical Advisory Committee, which is the group of municipal representatives, environmental groups, developers, a good myriad of different individuals. They meet once a month, go through any amendments that are proposed to the stormwater management ordinance. So one of the biggest, most impactful ones that's coming our way is the Illinois State Water Survey has done a new statistical analysis of rainfall in the state of Illinois. The current numbers that we use right now is we size everything predicting a 100-year rainfall as a 6.5-inch rainfall over a 24-hour period. The new statistical model shows that number to increase to 8.59 inches in a 24-hour period, which means that all of our detention facilities will have to increase, all of our storm sewer sizes will have to increase for any new development. There's no requirement to go back and retrofit anything, but this would be any new development. So they are going through those numbers, all of the ramifications of those numbers, trying to counter some of the impacts with some other things that we have some factors of safety. So they're looking at some other measures that may be able to, if we're increasing the size of a detention facility by 25%, is there something else we can do to give back a little bit so it's not as big of an impact? So those are all still at the TAC level, the Technical Advisory Committee level. They have not, I think the rainfall numbers were voted on at our October meeting, but there's still several other components to that change. They are anticipating, best case scenario, that it gets to the county board for vote in March of next year, and then followed within 6 months for each community to adopt it. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at.
So, from the technical committee, it'll come to the Stormwater Commission, which I'm on, gets debated, hearings, and then we kind of refine it, and then it gets up to the county board, and once they adopt it, then because we're part of the watershed development ordinance, then we'll have to adopt it. So there's a lot to be done. And I wasn't able to make the Tuesday morning presentation, but as David just articulated, this is for going forward. So that means everything built in the last 30 years is undersized for the amount of rain that we're getting now. So, Trustee Ballman?
When they removed all the trees there along 41, is there not some grading that's supposed to go on there too that is supposed to become a water detention pond?
It's wetlands.
that-
Oh, north
North of the
of
pyramid?
north of
Yeah,
town.
north
Yeah,
of the
that's
pyramid
the
there.
wetlands.
It's a wetland bank that's going in there, so yes, there's some grading that will happen. And yes, the intent to make it a wetland, you need to flood the soils and let them become hydric and, do some manipulation to the soil. So yes, I believe that project is not yet complete. I've not been up there in a while to see what the status is, but the intention is they would have some stormwater benefit, just like all the other ones that have done there. It acts as kind of a shock absorber in the system as the water comes down the main line. Des Plaines River, it floods out, spreads out, encompasses those areas, but then we have it hang around here for a little bit longer. It doesn't recede as quick as what it used to, because that water still all has to come through here at some point.
Don't tell me.
I know.
Trustee Garner?
Raising the level of rain from 6 to 6.5 to 8, I believe you said. Is there any, do they speculate as to why we're receiving so much rain?
It's a statistical analysis looking back over the last 40 to 50 years. So when you look at the trends over that time period, the trends are increasing. So whatever reason behind it, global warming, climate change, all of those are, contemplated as potentially part of it. But the result is that we're seeing the rainfalls increase. It may just be because we're looking at a longer time period. We've got better information, better equipment, more placed in more places, so we're getting a better true picture as to what's going on out there. But all the data that we're seeing shows it increasing in this area.
Yeah, because today's models were based on data from like 1962 or something.
Right.
So now it's all been updated, and Mike Warner did say as the earth warms, you get more rain. So just a tiny bit of degrees, like even a quarter of a degree makes more rain. So, Trustee Ross?
Did they also take into account what's happening in Wisconsin? Because that Kenosha got 7 inches of rain at the same time we did, and so is that why it was slower coming to us?
The numbers that SMC is looking at is just rainfall in Lake County. The storms that we had a couple of weeks ago, we tried to figure that in as best as we could, knowing that their regulations are not as strict as ours, and they are not accounting for as much detention as what we are. So we tried to factor that in. It's always kind of a work in progress, fine-tuning that. But to my knowledge, the state of Wisconsin's not looking to adopt any new numbers or any new rainfall amounts. So they're sticking with where they're at for now. I know stormwater management is, working with an organization to try to, make that understood to Wisconsin what the impacts are down here to us. So it's a continuous conversation to try to re-emphasize the needs of, making those requirements a little more strict so that they're not impacting people downstream.
All right, well, thank you, David. More to come. All right, next up, we have a report from our village engineer, Heather Galan, and our finance director, Brian Gosnell, for an update on the Knowles Road Water Tower.
Yeah, Heather and Brian are just going to walk you through. Heather's going to talk about the construction timeline, kind of where we're at and where we're headed, and then Brian is going to revisit the financials on it with the IEPA loan and the discussion we had about using some fund balance to finish the project off.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Knowles Road Water Tower and our IEPA loan update. So I'll go over the construction update and then what's to come with respect to the project, and Brian will go over the financials at the end. So for construction, if you notice the two photographs here at the bottom are the construction of the foundation of the water tower that you can no longer see, that's been buried. So that was done in the winter months. That took about 50 concrete trucks and about 490 cubic yards of concrete in there. So kind of gives you a scale of how large that was. Then in the March through August timeframe, they assembled the water tower and the internal piping that's at the ground level and underground that takes it from the water main into the tower. And then the steel's been being welded over the last several months. I'm sure you guys have seen it kind of as it proceeds up. Here's how it gets constructed. They use what's called welding at the ground level, and then the pedals, if you will, get lifted up into place. So here's at the beginning and mid of the bottom section. Then they do the midsection and finally the top. So that's kind of the progress that we went through. The final photo to the left here is inside the water tower looking up when the hatch was open. So a nice perspective of all the different welds and everything as it was coming together. And the photograph to the right depicts the way the curtain's going to go up. So each one of those strings, if you will, in the photograph, they will hoist the curtain into place while the tower is being sandblasted and painted. It only goes up when they're working and it comes back down at the end of the day. And it's supposed to contain any debris and or stop debris from sticking to the paint as they're applying it. There'll be 3 coats that go both on the inside and the outside to maintain structural integrity. So what's going to happen next? Right now we're at about 82% complete, and the painting of the interior and exterior is going on right now. It's a 12-week process. We're probably in about week 1 or 2, so it'll take us to the end of November, at which point they'll install all the equipment inside the base of the tower. That's for controls, for SCADA, motor control centers, all those things. They'll fill the tower with water, chlorinate it, test it, and then they'll set the parameters at which the water tower will fill and disperse back into the water system. At that point, we'll be at substantial completion, which is important for what Brian will talk about later. And then they'll shut down for the winter, and they'll come back in the spring and just do the landscaping. So they should be pretty much complete by the end of the year.
All right, just wanted to take a second here and review the loan and the direction that staff had last time we talked about it and approved the loan. The total approved IEPA loan was $6,132,208. Against that, we have about $5.97 million in contracts, so there's a little bit of a contingency built in there. The loan term is 20 years at 1.84%, that's fixed. We have about $1.76 million remaining to be paid out on the contracts that are led against the loan. As Heather mentioned, the first payment is 6 months after the substantial completion date, which we're targeting for the end of December. So our first payment on the loan will be in fiscal year 2021. Just a note, more talk about the next bullet point, is the cash balance in the water fund at the end of last fiscal year was $6.35 million. And then as we talked about with when we approved the loan documents, we talked about using $1.5 million from reserves to lower the amount that we borrowed, and then an additional $200,000 annually towards the debt service, which brought us to a 10-year term that we had talked about then. So really just making sure that that's still the direction the board wants to go. It gives us a little bit more budget flexibility by paying some up front, frees up some money in the water fund. So from a fund balance standpoint, it seems like it's still doable. I don't really have any concerns at this point with paying that extra $1.5 million. Just want to check and make sure the board still wants us to move in that direction, and that'll happen in this fiscal year, and then our first debt service payment will happen next year.
Anybody want to, I mean, we're not looking at any major expenditure in the water fund other than this water tower, unless something catastrophic happens. So are we still comfortable taking the money out of reserves to keep the loan balance down and paying ahead to get it 10 years? So Trustee Hood?
Pay as fast as you can. Don't like that, right? Like we agreed.
All right, we just want to make sure before we start.
Yeah,
Trustee Garner?
Staff's comfortable, so we just
I
want to
just have a
confirmation.
couple of curiosity questions. How much time does it take to fill a water tower?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be perfectly honest. I can do some calculations, factoring the fact that it's 2 million gallons, but.
2
can't do
million
it on the fly.
gallons.
Yeah.
The other thing was, does it freeze in the winter? How do you keep it from freezing?
No, there's a constant movement of water. So we don't just put it up there and leave it, otherwise it gets stale. So there's the necessary amount of turnover. So it's always moving, and as long as water's moving, you have no susceptibility to freezing.
Is that what that thing inside is? Is that like a washing machine?
Oh, well, we
spinner?
do have, they're kind of, I think, like change purse kind of diffusers. So when the water comes in, it spreads it out. So
Okay.
it's mixing in there, so it's not stagnant.
I just wondered, and the paint, you said you paint the inside and the outside. Is there any chance of contamination of the water?
No, it's
No
an
worry.
approved, I can't recall if it's epoxy, but it was approved by EPA when we did the project, so.
And that's what keeps it from rusting on the inside?
Correct. It protects the steel. Mhm.
Just wanted to know.
And this will then also be on a maintenance
Yes.
contract?
Yeah,
then
we're never doing that
Now that
again.
we've got
Yes.
that pretty well
Yeah.
caught up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, we'll have to bring that forward a little bit later. It's
Yeah.
not built into this particular contract, but it will need maintenance down the road, yes.
At least 10, 15 years down the road, right? As long as we do regular maintenance every year.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
work with
that's-
Suez to bring a contract forward, so.
And the new logo will be on this tower.
It'll be on it. We're all still debating where it'll be on it, but it'll be on it.
I gave you my
I asked
2 cents.
6 different people and got 6 different locations, so we might just draw out of a hat at the end of the day, but we'll get it.
All right, any other questions for Heather or Brian?
Mayor,
Trustee Thorstensen?
it's actually for Jack. Was there any communication then around the noise about the painting?
And I talked to Heather about that, and we haven't received any noise complaints about the construction out there, which we think will be louder than the compressors that they'll be running. So we have it teed up that if we get a complaint on the compressors running, we'll get that out. But based on the complaints to date, which have been 0, we're hopeful that the compressors won't be as loud as the cranes and the welding and everything else out there. So it's definitely on our radar, so.
Thanks. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good, because I get 2 for next week. We don't have anything planned for the next committee of the whole on September 30th.
Yeah.
Nothing that's ready to bring forward. And we're all going to have a meeting on that Wednesday that we need to attend, so do I?
Make a
Any-
motion.
Does anybody have any concerns about canceling the committee of the whole? I have a motion from Trustee Ballmer, second from Trustee Hood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Yeah, the second was Hood. All right, no COW. That's good, because I just made a dentist appointment. I was
Good.
thinking I'd be in here with Novocaine.
There you
No old business?
go. Correct.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. First item is approval of ordinance 2019-60,
60.
granting variations pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for 3419 Route 132.
Yeah, everything under new business is related. This relates to the Citgo gas station on East Grand. So as you know, they were before the Planning and Zoning Board earlier this year with a proposal to redevelop the site for a car wash. Received mixed reviews. Before it came to the village board, they redid the plans. The village board remanded it back to the Planning and Zoning Board, where it was heard again. Made it through that process. There's been a lot of changes along the way. The memo from our associate planner, Clara, was very detailed, but as I said, it's a pretty complex proposal just because of the moving back and forth between the planning and zoning board and village board. So David lived through it, was at all the PZB meetings, and is going to walk us through where we're at, kind of where it was, and where we've gotten to today, and what exactly the village board is considering this evening.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. I will do my best to give you a clear, straightforward synopsis of the process to date. First appeared at the Planning and Zoning Board. They had several requests for variances, special use permits, and a couple of minor sign exceptions that were on the list. They had a few of them that were approved or recommended for approval, a couple of them that were recommended for denial, and one tied 2-2 vote that ended up being no recommendation. Once they completed the planning and zoning process, they went back and retooled the plans a little bit and were able to resolve some of the issues that the Planning and Zoning Board had with some of their negative recommendations. Based upon the scope and quantity of those, staff felt it appropriate, and the village board concurred that it should go back to the Planning and Zoning Board for them to take a second look at it. When they revisited the site last time, they recommended for approval everything except for one item, which was in essence, the maneuvering of the vehicles in and out of the vacuum pay stations, conflicting with the queued up lines for the pay stations. After that meeting, they went back and retooled their design again and were able to alleviate 3 of the vacuum stations and relocate the queue lines for the pay stations as well to alleviate that concern. So making that special use permit that was required for that maneuvering area disappear. The only one point of contention that staff had, or concern that staff had, was there's a hatched off area where those 3 vacuum stations used to be. Their preference is to leave that pavement in place, and I'll let them express their reasons for maintaining that area. As the village, we're always impervious surface conscious, so we don't like any more hard surfaces than we need, but they can explain their reasoning behind that. And you have in front of you tonight the ordinance for approval of the variances. All of those have favorable recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Board. You have a ordinance for the tie vote that came from the Planning and Zoning Board, which related to interior signage, the height and size of interior signs. And then the third ordinance, you have 2 options. One, approving the site plan as is, approving all the special uses with the site plan as is with the paved area in place. And the second one, approving the final special use permit without that paved area. So I think that's the synopsis that I promised. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, and the petitioners are here as well.
You want to just go over the variance, what that's required for?
Pardon?
The variance is for the setbacks to Grand and then the separation, right?
Yes. Yes, the variance is for the separation off of Grand Avenue. They were able to alleviate the separation requirement, or the variance from Lawrence, and then the separation between the 2 curb cuts.
And the petitioners are here if the board, if the board does have any questions that David can't answer. So questions from the trustees? Trustee O'Brien?
Just for clarification, where is on the design, now back to the first one, would be fantastic if you can point to it. Just where is the grass versus asphalt section?
So this is the drawing to show the 3 pay stations were in this area. Those have been removed, and they've opted to keep the paved area and just hatch it off versus removing that and turning it to turf.
So it's creating green space on the front.
And more permeable surfaces so water can get down instead of flooding.
Less permeable. you know, this is one of the comparisons that are made between the Hunt Club corridor and this corridor. We've always insisted on a lot of green space in the front to lessen the intensity. And so we've been trying to do that in this corridor too.
I understand. And one other, Mayor?
Go ahead.
The 2-2 tie had to do with the interior signs, and they mentioned, if I recall reading correctly, that there would be some trees that might block the view off of Grand Avenue. Or is that the 2 trees in the upper left-hand corner there?
Right, the signs in question are basically in this area. So it is going to be a somewhat of an obscured view into those signs. Planning and zoning board had mixed feelings on whether they were necessary. And, you know, they did exceed the requisite square footage and height of the signs within the site. So that's why it kind of came to you as a 2-2 tie vote.
And
So
I
there
think
was-
also those 3 signs were to market some of the plans that they had. So it's primarily for the cars coming through the car wash that they could see advertisements.
Yeah. It's designed to market to cars already on the site, not marketing to cars off-site on Grand Avenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions here? Okay. Trustee Balmas and then Trustee Garner.
So the traffic pattern on this, David, the 2 darker grays that go through the pay go into the car wash. And the outer lighter gray is for those who are vacuuming, can go around it
Yes.
and then do that southern exit
Yes.
there on the south side. Is there anything separating where the cars that are going into the wash versus exiting out of the vacuum area? Or is it just, I mean, a striping, is that how it separates?
There's no physical barrier between the two. The vehicles exiting from most people vacuum first and then do the car wash. So the thought is that that's going to be the majority of them. If somebody doesn't want to go through there, they can pull up to that bypass lane, and then the person in the control booth, which is in this area here,
Right.
can activate that outside lane and allow them to escape. So that's going to be not the norm, but that will be kind of the exception. And they would be able to escape without sneaking in, and they'd be monitored at that point.
Okay. I was just questioning how that was. So the vacuums are self-paid. You can go and just vacuum. That's separate than the car wash.
Yes, they aren't for pay, they're free, but yeah, the customer can select the vacuums and then hopefully get into line for the payment. One of the unique things about this is that there's always someone watching at what we call the command center. Dave, could I go up to the screen and point?
Sure.
Sir, I just need you to state your name for the record too.
My name is Chris Kolashevsky from WT Group. We are the site architects and engineer. Also with me here is Mr. Matthew Graham from Graham Enterprises Incorporated. The concern about the vacuum, what's nice about this whole design here is that we actually have a command center. This one person can sit here, see the cars out here, see the cars approaching, and also can see the cars coming through. This is all glass area, almost like you're getting your car washed on the outside. And so what happens is if someone is post-washing, doing the vacuums, then coming around through here, there is an actual gate, and then this person will monitor, as David was saying, raise the gate, the person would come around and then exit another gate here that's also controlled by the command center. So a very controlled environment, and so the person here is seeing each of the cars, and there's a detector loop that ties the computer in to what type of wash the person's getting. So very automated, very efficient, very friendly.
So your vacuums are free?
Yes.
so you can't use those unless you do the car wash? Is that how that goes?
That's what we would prefer, but quite frankly, if someone pulls in there and uses them and demands to exit, then we'll have to let them exit. Definitely our preference that they use the wash and then get the car wash, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Use the vacuums. But this is
Wondering how you're going to control that. You can't really.
You can, if you see repeat customers in that, we have basically 3 employees on the site. We'll have one person in the command center, one basically entry, and one monitoring the vacuum areas. And if we see a repeated pattern, they will be approached when they come to the site.
Okay.
But,
Thank you.
welcome.
Trustee Gurnee?
So going through the wash bay, are there 2 lanes of cars going through, or do they merge down to a single file?
Yeah, they're all single file. Basically, after you're past the detector loop, I'll keep my hand from being in the way here. So you're going through here. Each of these have gates. And so after you make your payment, your gate goes up. You go past the detector loop, that brings your gate down and then makes the next gate going up. So basically, there are 2 cars right here. And then after this point, there's only 1 car after the gate. And so 1 car at a time, and they're in a line. They actually are forced uphill, and then we come downhill towards the car wash very purposely. It's because we want people to be riding their brakes as they go towards the car wash and not pressing the accelerator. So very safety conscious in the way we've laid out this entire site. In terms of even the interaction with the vacuums and the customers here. Graham's have 19 car washes that they operate very well. I've designed over 350 car washes, so we're very aware of the maneuvering that's required. For this type of business, there's 2 things to make it successful. That the person needs to be safe, and it needs to be convenient. And it also needs to be maybe even more importantly, not only does it have to be safe, but it needs to appear safe and very easy to turn, not tight turns and that. So all these radiuses have been run through on a computer model to make sure that the largest, we actually use a car that's as wide as a Humvee and as long as a Suburban. And so much larger than any car that's on the road right now. So that's how we determine the radiuses and all that. So.
And to enter the car wash, you're only entering from Lawrence Avenue?
Correct, right? This is the entry point. And so as you can see, it's a one-way with the arrows and such.
Correct, and cars on Grand Avenue can enter Lawrence Avenue from making a right turn southbound or a left turn southbound.
Right. The current car wash right now actually has 3 curb cuts along Grand. So this whole process is really making this a more automated operation and a safer operation.
So when they come, when the wash is complete and you're exiting onto Lawrence Avenue, can you exit left or right, north or south?
Yes, but quite frankly, our majority of our customers are going to go back to Grant, yeah.
Mandatory left turn out of there, or?
Not a mandatory, because quite frankly, we like the neighbors to wash their car and be able to go home.
Lawrence isn't a through street, though.
No,
it's not a through street, but there is a back doorway down to Washington if you know the local streets.
Oh, that's where you make that elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go by Oakwood.
And also, can you point out the electronic gate to, if you want to escape the property or avoid?
Yeah, there's 2 of them, again, right at the front here, where the person is seeing you at the gate, and then also right here, this is a electronic gate here to prevent, quite frankly, someone from doing that.
No further questions.
Trustee Hood?
Could you, it sounds like you need to make a defense of the crosshatched
Yes.
crosshatched area.
Right.
Make your defense.
Okay. This is an express style car wash. What that means is it's not like some of the full serve washes that you've seen where a person will get out of their car, they'll walk down a hallway, and then someone else will bring the car through the car wash and then people will dry on the end. This is a high-tech express style wash, so the customer will come in, they'll have the ability to vacuum. These are 12-foot wide aisles. The vacuum here is arches on each. You can see these Y-shape or V-shape items, and what that is an actual arch that has the hose on it. So this isn't like the old days with the canister and the 20-foot hose that's, you know, ringing all over in the dirt. So this is above, coming down. You pull into your station, you pull out the cord that's on your side. If you're the passenger, you clean your passenger side, you put it back in the holder, go around, go and pick out from the passenger side and do the same thing. Very organized, very convenient, very quick. The typical express style car wash has 20 vacuums. It's a big part of the business, and the free aspect of it is very huge. We previously had 12 vacuum areas here. And Dave, I was wondering if you could advance way to the very end of the slide, even right, one back. Okay, these are, I'm going to give you 4 examples of car washes that are successful today. 3 of them not designed by me, 1 that was designed by our firm. We want you to notice that in this one here, and this one, if you draw a line from this pay station here, there's only 9 feet from the back of the parking to the stacking lane here, this 3rd stacking lane. If you could go to the next, Dave. This one here, the entrance is here, and you can see from the back of the parking to the lane, there's 0 feet itself. If you could go to the next one. Again, when you have the entrance point here, here's the pay point, the drive-through, there's 0 feet between the back of the parking and this drive lane. And then finally, the last one. And this one is diagonal, and you can see the number of cars in here, a very busy site. But what happens, again, we have 0 here and 0 here. What happens 90% of the time is that this works very fluently, and there's no need for the on-site help to do anything. You can see there are no cars stacked up here. This automated process brings the cars so quickly through that you don't have the stacking problems of the old type of car washes. And so, David, if we could go back to, and again, those were 4 sites, 3 designed by totally different designers and such, and 3 different owners. And one more, please. Oops, and one more. There we are. So we actually originally designed this where this was tighter, and the reason being, in a express style car wash, you know that on those super busy days, basically 5 to 6 days a year, it's a salty Saturday, you know, after the Friday snowstorm, that people want to get their cars, the lines will start occurring, and we know we will close these vacuums and just direct. But in this essence, we have redone this design. We don't have to do that. We have 24 feet 6 inches here, and that's enough for 2-way traffic. We've already expressed this as 1-way. Technically, by your code, this only needs to be 12 feet. So basically, we have from the back of these stripes to the narrowest part, where there's not even any vacuums any longer, is 18.6 and 24 feet to here. What our thought has always been for these 3 spots, even when they were 3 vacuums, was this is where the snow is going to be. We were actually going to put ice melting in the pad here, as well as ice melting across here. And there's no way that, don't worry, we're not going to spend $2 million+ and have a big, ugly snow pile here. But this would be a quick thing to be able to plow just this area of the snow to make this operational, put that there temporarily while the car wash is running, and then on off hours either relocate it, or as I said, we would be melting it into the storm system. So it's a very, very important part of our operations. An express style car wash works a little differently, and then it's not a standard parking lot. Like a standard parking lot has 2 rows of parking, and you absolutely need the 24 feet between the two, just for safety for cars pulling out both ways. In this case, it's always one way. It's controlled by the attendant who can section things off. So we are making a very strong ask that we're allowed to keep this for our snow and snow melting area. One of the things I do want to express, though, if you look at this whole site, we have 18,641 square feet of landscaping. That is a 40% landscape ratio. Typical commercial sites are 20% or less. So we're having almost double the amount of landscaping on this site. And we're augmenting it all the way along the front. We have continuous landscaping. So quite frankly, from the street view, you will not know if that is pavement or if that's landscaping. And so what we want to do, we've been handcuffed a little bit in the way we had to modify our design. We ask respectfully to allow that pavement to remain as an operations standpoint in terms of the snow melt. Again, we have 220 new plant units.
I just wanted to, you gave your defense on that. Could I just ask I need to hear staff's response to that.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's a difference of opinion, so David, what's your?
Snow piling, our initial thought was, it's excess pavement. We don't like any excess pavement where we don't have to. We suggested leaving it as a green turf area for, you could still pile snow on it, no bushes, no trees. They indicated that their desire was to be able to, scoop it up and haul it off site or relocate it on site if need be. There's not a whole lot of sites in town that have pavement dedicated to snow piles. Most of them, it's something that you just make work as as the snow seasons come. It would be nice to have a dedicated area, but it's, snow piles are on site for 4 months a year, 5 months a year, and the pavement's there 12 months a year. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Could I expound on a couple other points, and then that signage, the signage issue as well? Is this appropriate for that?
You want to hear about the signage? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Okay.
The question was coming up.
No.
Trustee O'Brien?
As long as we're on this part, where's the employee parking?
Employee parking is in the back of the store and facility right here in this area, so totally separated.
Thank you.
One of the things I want to add too is that in regards to the entire site, the FAR ratio is also a very small 0.178, so we're not trying to put too large of a building on this site. So the FAR and the LSR are showing that we're being very liberal with the landscaping and doing as small of a building as we functionally can. Just in terms of some of the landscaping, we have 220 new plant units, of which 53 trees and 167 large type of shrubs. So that doesn't count all the perennials and all that. So with that, we feel that from this site, from the viewpoint of either heading either way on Grand Avenue, you are going to see a very well landscaped site. And again, you will not be able to determine if that's landscaping or not. You'll see continuous landscaping across. In light of that, the 3 signs that are right here are back here where this is a whole tree line coming through here. And one of the things I want to mention, these circles here are existing trees that are 6 inches or above. So anything smaller than 6 inches isn't even shown here. So this is a dense, dense forest here. In addition, we have a 6-foot-high fence per your requirements that comes up here, and this is a retaining wall. So this is actually a very high wall that physically will not be able to be seen into this area. With that, your ordinance states that the following additional signs are allowed without a sign permit. Signs that are not visible from any public thoroughfare or right-of-way from or beyond the boundaries of the lot or parcel. So I think just physically you will not be able to see it. But when we ask for a variance, I know that's a give and take procedure. We are actually allowed, 578 square feet of signage throughout the site here. We're only proposing to have 309 square feet. Even if we add the square footage of these 3 signs, which are 23 square feet each, that gets us to 378, still leaving 200 square feet on the table. So again, just like our LSR ratio, our FAR ratio, and the signage that we're requesting is less than the maximum allowed. And again, per the definition of the zoning ordinance, a sign that can't be seen doesn't need to be permitted. Also, from the American Planners Association, they say that a sign for a street that's multi-laned, like this street is, and that the speed limit is 35 miles, the sign needs to be 120 square feet to be seen safely. And our signs are only 23 square feet. I'm just offering that up to show that there is no intent to grab any attention from a passerby. It is truly just a sign for the customer that's coming around here and quite frankly encouraging them to become a monthly member and to take advantage of the particular specials for that month. So for 2 reasons, one, the sign cannot be seen. The ordinance says that a sign that can't be seen does not have to be permitted. 2, that the American Planners Association says that the sign would have to be 120 square feet to be seen. They're only 23 square feet. We respectfully, again, request to be allowed to have these signs to, in this case, when a person is beyond this entry point, they're in the store. They're in the front door of Walmart. And when you get into the front door of Walmart, you see your signs for the different departments. And that's what we try to do quite very specifically in terms of how we direct the person around. What type of signage do we tell them here with the menus? And then after they made their selection, what types of offerings and memberships can they get? So with those, the operations aspect of that part and the signage here, we respectfully ask that you consider our request.
Trustee Bomas?
If we were to allow that striping where you want to put the snow, how do we know that that is going to be empty except for snow? That you're not going to start selling wood chips or some other, or park a car there for sale or another use other than empty space?
Right, and that, a very good point. That will have to be established by the ordinance that's written. Verbiage can be put in of that nature. Basically, it's going to be used for how we are presenting it. We will stripe it like that, showing no parking and such. And we ask that you help us enforce it. We'll put signage there as you need us to.
Any on-site sales like that would need a retail counter or something like that. The way the site is set up really doesn't have that and isn't available for that. So anything along those lines would, entail a reconfiguration of the building, so it'd have to come back through permits, and we'd have to figure that out at that time. I'm not too concerned about that. And I will have to concede that, you know, we have, you know, asked a lot on this site. They have given a lot on this site for a lot of our requests, and at the end, we're pretty much in compliance with all of the PZB recommendations, with the exception of 600 square feet on a 2.5-acre site. So, grand scheme of things, that's a fairly small percentage.
Thank you.
Trustee Ross?
So when you come into the site, there's signs telling how much it costs and where to, because I was looking
Right.
through and I couldn't find the signs.
Right, the sign's right here. The main sign, of course, is right here, is the ID sign itself that will direct the general nature of the facility as
That's
you're
a
coming
monument
in.
sign?
What's
That's-
that?
That's your monument sign?
That is our monument sign right at
Okay.
that corner. And then as you come in, obviously the arrows, there's directional signs here that say in and out. Then as you approach here, they have the menu boards right here that list basically the 3 to 4 types of washes that are available and what each package contains. So the pricing is there. The person right here deals directly with the person right at the window. This person here is an automated pay station, and our members clubs, they'll have actually a little tag on their car that is read automatically, and they'll just go right through. And then as they come around here, that they'll see the ID signs to become members. It's really to their benefit, but also for our benefit from the business model. As you know, if you know how many members you have, you can pretty much gauge your monthly income and stuff like that. So it's a smart business practice. And then coming out throughout the site, there's a little sign that tells you some information as you pull out, and then of course your exit and your entrance sign again.
So when you're coming through, you don't see anything about the membership?
You do
At the
a little
beginning.
bit. There's a little sign on this side here, and there will be a little spot on the menu board, but there's also all the other sales on the menu board. So it gets them thinking about it. Quite frankly, the person sitting in here is going to be asked to ask about that as well. So. As you know from communication classes and that, you got to say something 3 times for it to stick. So that's our 3rd time right there. Sorry.
I'll just remind the board to follow up to David's statement on the cross hatch area. We have in the past, a specific car owner, our auto dealer in town, we allowed them to keep some pavers instead of removing them, and now it's become, there's times where something's on the pavers, even though they agreed not to put something on the pavers, and then chasing with, the code violations and stuff. So I know you're absolutely swearing by it right now. 3 or 4 years from now, a different guy sitting in that tower, and all of a sudden people are parking there and then displaying stuff. So that's something to consider as the future, or code enforcement that kind of happens when we make these exceptions, and then staff's got to try to enforce them. And
one of the things we like to say is that this is, I'm sorry, don't know what's going on with this, but basically these 9 spaces, again, the typical has 20 spaces. So when we were having 3 here to have 12, we knew we could take 3 out to get 9, and we would be okay with 9. Now if we don't have that, now we still got to put the snow somewhere. So now we're going to lose 3 more spaces, and now that really is hurting the business model. the relationship, the correlation of the type of sales and the free vacuums is very direct. And so you saw from the examples that I showed, the 4 examples, they all had 20-plus vacuums. And this, we just don't have the land for it, and we're not pushing for that. But to go down to 9, and then if we didn't get that pavement area, I think it's a very hard, very severe hardship to go down now to 6 vacuums operable.
And this is more green space than we have there. It's a huge upgrade from what's there now. And, I just have learned over the years that we make exceptions and then it becomes difficult for staff on the enforcement side. So I just wanted to remind them the last time we made an exception.
And the grams are, it's not just pavement, it's going to be heated there. So this is going to be a costly piece of pavement for them, but it's going to make the operations of the site work very well.
All right, maybe we deal with the other two.
One more
Okay,
question.
Trustee Ross.
You said you've had a lot of experiences with car washes.
Yes.
Do people really use vacuums when there's that much snow on the ground?
Yes.
Because I mean, I know I wouldn't be out there vacuuming the car because I would wait until it was warmer, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, we see the customers use it throughout the year. And it's so convenient because you have the arches and you have the handles. You're literally less than 5 minutes and you're done with your complete car. And you're not dragging a cold, snowy hose through your car. You're just doing it on one side, putting it in, and going to the other side. So people know how quick it is and they do use it throughout the year. We even have people use it when it's raining. So they're coming in there, they're doing it real quick, and then they just go and not get the car wash.
Trustee O'Brien?
And what would happen if snow were to be put on the grass?
Well, what happens with the grass there, we can't move it if we have a really big snow like the 12 inches. It, of course, will deteriorate the snow itself, the grass itself. Just having the salt and stuff like that is going to make it hard to keep that a nice looking space. So what we prefer to do is define it with a curb, surround it totally with landscaping and high shrubs right here, so it's a fence of landscaping.
It's a judgment call. All right, maybe we focus on the ones that don't, you're going to have a choice between the two, with and without the hash mark area. So maybe we do the other two.
Well, I think if you just go with the first one, that's the
That's the
setbacks
variances,
and the,
yeah.
so we can start with that one.
So that's
So
the one
moved.
I read into the, okay. Motion by Trustee Hood.
Second.
Second by Trustee O'Brien. This is for the variations, 2019-60. Roll call, please, Andy.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
What'd you say?
Aye.
Aye. Gardner.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, that was for the variances. Can I skip to number 4 and get that one out of the way?
Yeah, you can, that's fine.
All right.
So number 4 are those 3 directional
Right.
signs, and it was a 2-2 tie when this went to the Plan Commission quite some time ago. And so there's been some changes to the site, and that's item number 4.
All right, so let me read it into the record. Approval of ordinance 2019-61, approving a special use permit to allow 3 8-foot tall information board signs pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for 3419 Route 132. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Hood, second by Trustee Balmas. Roll call, please, Andy.
Hood, Balbus.
Yeah.
And this is number
Balmas.
4?
We
Yeah,
just,
we
number 4.
skipped
yes.
2 and 3. Okay. O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries.
Now, the last two are in the alternative.
Right.
And the way they're listed is item number 2 is what the applicant is their preference. That's, and you've heard quite a bit of discussion on that. Neither of these proposals were taken up directly by the Plan Commission. This is strictly staff looked at it, and they came to 2 alternative views on this to present. But item number 2, if that's the ordinance, I think that's probably the one that should be voted on first, because that is the preference of the applicant. This would create the site as depicted with the hash mark pavement.
All right, so approval of ordinance 2019-62, approving special use permit pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for 3419 Route 132. This leaves the striped pavement area directly west of the vacuum stalls.
And if this ordinance passes, there would be no need to go to ordinance number 3, because they're stated in the alternative, and so if this is affirmative, then we're done tonight.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the special use permit, leaving the area paved with the hash marks?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Thorstenson. Roll call?
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
No.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
No.
Garner.
Nay.
That's 3-3. So Kavorik?
So the mayor can vote on this.
Should have been paying attention, no. I want green space. So nay.
All right.
Sorry.
Motion fails, so now it's going to be necessary to take on the next item, item number 3.
All right. So do I make it 62 then, since the other one failed?
Correct. Well, Pat,
63.
Okay.
63.
Approval of ordinance 2019-63, approving special use permits pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for 3419 Route 132. This includes, this has the striped pavement being converted to turf. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee O'Brien, second by trustee Garner. All right, Andy.
All right. O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay. Good luck, welcome. That's all of our new business, so I'm going to open the floor for public comment. I'd like to address the board and state your name.
Sean Debke, you need an address?
No.
Unfortunately, I'm here again. I wish I never would have to come, but this flooding keeps coming. According to the 100-year floods, I'm 964 years old today. That's why I'm so tired, because I'm that old, according to the village and the records of 100-year floods. So I know the village can't stop the flooding. I've been to the meetings, and we fought this for 20, 30 years. When they put Grand Avenue in, that was the beginning of the problem, the new Grand Avenue. For those of you that don't know that, that is one of the problems. But this keeps coming and coming and coming, and I know you hate it because it costs you a lot of money. And I know a lot of flooded victims hate it. I hate it, and I have several properties in the area. There's got to be some better solutions, or quicker. This has been going on since 1960. This is 2019, 60 years. you've bought maybe 20, 30 properties. That doesn't cut it, ladies and gentlemen. By the time you buy all the properties down there, there's nobody in this room that'll be alive. You've got to buy them quicker and better, or faster, if they're willing. I agreed with the late Mayor Welton that he wouldn't take anybody's property without their permission, and like the people in Libertyville have done, and I'm all in agreement with that. But I think you have to start buying properties at a quicker pace, because we're going to get more rain. All the weathermen keep telling us more rain, more rain. So it's going to happen over and over, and your budgets for fire and police are going to go crazy. And it's just a terrible, if you haven't been through a flood, you just can't imagine it, a house or a business. You've got to act quicker. You've got to act faster for everybody in that downtown Gurnee area. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
It's not going to make a difference.
David, how many properties are left from the original list? You know, and maybe just put it in the next administrator memo. Because for some of the new, we did a flood mitigation plan. It was before I was mayor, so it's a while, but we prioritized all the properties based on flooding, history and all that, and then that's how we've been approaching the property owners based on that list, so.
We're probably halfway through the list,
Okay.
in all honesty. And the highest priority are the ones that
Yeah.
get flooded first, and finding the combination of the highest priority ones with willing sellers and grant
And,
money
yeah,
and benefit to cost ratios, all those play into, how they get selected.
Yeah, I mean, we have been relying on the 75% FEMA grant and only putting in 25%. If we were to speed up purchasing properties, we're not going to get more FEMA money. I mean, we would, have to be buying these out of pocket, all of it. So, but at least maybe just update us with the list and what's left on it, and then that can become some direction that we either come up with at budget time or in a strategic plan.
And I disagree with Sean. Being in the flood, it's just.
Floodway, yeah, you're
the
floodway, not
floodway.
flood zone.
There's a difference, floodway. It really, honestly, I don't think makes a difference whether the houses are there or not. What makes a difference is trying to save them and to save the people that live in them. That's been more the reason. It's not going to stop the water because the water has gotten deeper anyway. So it's not so much the buying of them. Sean, you should know that too. It's salvaging or bothering to keep a cop at the end of Kilbourne so nobody drives down the street, because people tend to want to do that anyway.
But it's a good refresher to look at how many properties we started with, how many we bought, where were they on the priority list, and just do a little reality check again. So we'll look at it, Sean. No promises.
I couldn't fix mine again, Sean, so I have to.
All right, any other public comment? All right, if not, do I have a motion
So
motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you.